Good evening, guys. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Mr. Dice, I'd like to talk to you about we're not sure if they're a cult, but they sure act like one in my local area here near Portland, and that I don't know if they could be connected to the Bilderberger group, but they certainly would be connected with the Rothschild family. Have you ever heard of a group called Oculus Anubis?
I have not.
Well, if I could just share the little that I know of them. I lived in a town called Damascus, near Portland, Oregon. I lived very close to this property for some time without even knowing it was there. A friend of mine, when they were trying to find my address, saw it on Google Earth, and from the aerial view, the property is laid out in the shape of a triangle, and their structures and their landscape is incorporated into that. It's a gigantic Egyptian-style sort of image. The road that it's on is populated by one family. It's a public road, but the neighborhood, everyone lives on the street leading up to the gates. There's statues at the entrance of Anubis on either side. But my friends and I decided to kind of look into it. We thought it was interesting. It's owned by the family owns an optometrist office in the area, and the head doctor, or the optometrist, his last name, which I can't remember, looking into that, is a branch of the Rothschild family. Now, calling the office and asking to speak to him, a friend of mine kind of stupidly mentioned the name Oculus Anubis, instant hang-up. They filed for a permit to build what they call the wine cellar on the property. My uncle is works at a winery, he runs one, and I showed him that information. He said that you would be able to store more than 250,000 bottles of wine in a space that large. They canceled the permit, said they weren't going to build it, but since this place was so close by, there were a lot of concrete trucks coming in and out and heavy machinery, contractors there on site who would not say anything about what they were doing when we asked them. Chances are it could easily just be a tax shelter. But I was just curious, I can't find hardly anything on the internet about it except for aerial photos and some photos of the gate. Part of their property touches a river nearby, which in Oregon, all waterfront property is you can't own it. It's private, it's public land. But they have fences on the private land blocking access to their property and to some of the public property. And when we talked to the local authorities about that, it was a complete dead end. They were not interested in pursuing that, not even sending a code enforcement officer out there to look. And so, there's no evidence that they're doing anything nefarious. But I was hoping that you'd have some information. And if you'd like, if I could contact you through your website, I'd send you some more of the stuff that I know, and it might be interesting.
That is very interesting. I've just Googled it while you were talking. I found some photos. Email me some information on that. In my previous book, Inside the Illuminati, I do cover a lot of little-known information. There's a secret society, George, of secretaries that is used to actually supply qualified secretaries to high-profile businessmen, et cetera, et cetera. It's called the Seraphic Society as well. It's very, just when you think you've got it all figured out, you come across a piece of information that you've never heard of. So I really appreciate the heads up on that. Oculus Anubis.
Did you also find out that there was a Belizean Grove, which was the woman's version of Bohemian Grove? Is that true, or is that a myth?
Not much is known about this, but the Belizean Grove is a real organization. They don't have a property. It is an organization of high-profile women that was started back in 2001, started Super Bowl weekend by woman Stroutberg, who is the president of PartnerCom, a company that manages advisory boards around the world for businesses and governments. And in a response to her husband and most men being preoccupied with the Super Bowl, she gathered up a small group of her high-powered girlfriends and flew down to Central America, down to Belize, and then founded the Belizean Grove as the sort of male version of the Bohemian Grove. The group now consists of about 100 of the world's most influential women who meet up every year down in Belize for 3 days for a conference and for a balance of what they call fun and bonding. And it is a constellation of influential women and key decision makers around the world.
At the Bohemian Grove, Mark, are they upscale cabins? Where do they stay?
Yeah, you're not talking about sleeping in tents. There are clubhouses. There are very elaborate sleeping quarters. It's a summer camp for the wealthy and well-to-do. There's a lot of big structures. Each sub-camp has their own clubhouse, which consists of a full kitchen, sleeping quarters, a bar, etc. And that's why membership in the Grove is not cheap. I mean, it's about $25,000 to join, several $1,000s a year. I've actually been able to get their financial records, and they're real because they're registered as a 501c7 nonprofit with the IRS, which means that some of their financial records have to be made public for inspection if you know where to get them, which I did. And the 2013 records show that the club took in $10 million in revenue just in 1 year from the members. And they paid about $3 million in salary to the staff, and other expenses were another $3 million, which went to pay for food, booze, insurance, electricity, building maintenance, etc. So their total expenses in 1 year were around $6 million.
Wow. Byron's in Indiana, east of the Rockies now. Byron, go ahead.
How's it going, guys?
Okay, sir.
All right, Mark, I have two questions that have drove me nuts for years, and now I got the opportunity, thank you, George, to ask them. It's about the secret society, and it's a man that references you personally, Mark. He goes by the name of Donald Marshall. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yes. There's a whole list of people, and I debunk a lot of them in the Illuminati Facts and Fiction. Because the conspiracies become such an interesting big topic, you got a lot of people like this guy, William Schneblin, and some others who come forward and claim, they give these sometimes entertaining and elaborate stories. John Todd was another one back in the 1970s. They piece together stories of a conspiracy and say that they're a part of it firsthand, that they've been victims of it, or that they are, insiders coming out to expose it. And in most of these cases, it's just people who are looking for attention or trying to sell a book, and instead of trying to just expose it from an outside perspective, they're trying to add a bit of credibility to their story by claiming to be insiders. And I've seen this just time and time again. The list goes on and on of these people.
And he said it didn't take long before people started cloning humans, and he mentions you personally in that. And I was curious, with all the research that you've done, have you come across any secret societies that have mentioned or come across anything as far as human cloning goes?
Well, I do know that one of the top transhumanists who was the first one to suggest cloning human beings, two decades ago, is not affiliated with any secret society, but he's a transhumanist, and he says that they will evolve into gods. There's a clip of this guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he literally says that they will become gods, and if you get in their way, that there will be warfare. And this is one of the men who literally proposed cloning human beings. And so he is a top transhumanist, looking for the transhumanist revolution to evolve into a cybernetic, immortal post-human.
Mark, do you think that they get involved in the Greece financial situation and things like that with the euro?
If there's something that happens on a global scale, you can guess that they're behind it. Richard Seed, by the way, is the man that I was talking about, the geneticist. These are the people who actually proposed the euro, and I think that they're running into some problems. They had proposed a North American Union here, merging the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and merging our currencies into what they proposed. The Council of Foreign Relations said the Amero, and it hasn't happened yet, although if the dollar eventually goes the way of Greece, if the United States continues on the road that we're on, which undoubtedly we will, it looks like they may get their plan. But the Bilderberg Group, in their own internal documents, one of the former Labor Party leaders, a man named Hugh Gateskill, had his personal documents after he died in a library, and somebody went through them and found that they had some of the original Bilderberg documents from the first Bilderberg group, and they were all marked personal and confidential, and they were planning the European Union and the Euro and the whole New World Order back then. And this isn't a rumor. This is in the actual Bilderberg documents. It's something I detail in my previous book, The Bilderberg Group: Facts and Fiction.